The Denver Broncos, coming off of a victory against the Detroit Lions, must now shift their focus to the Cincinnati Bengals. And if they're going to beat Cincinnati and if they're going to progress to make the playoffs, the Broncos must address Teddy Bridgewater's approach at the quarterback position. Plus, not to mention the Broncos facing their toughest test all season long. Sayre, Bedinger, myself, we talk about why this Bengals matchup is one that Broncos must absolutely win in order to have a chance at the playoffs. We break that down and much more all in today's brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back into a brand new episode, Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast here on the Locked on NFL Network, your team every day from the South Stands to the end zone. I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, joined alongside by my co-host, Sayre Bedinger. Both of us, we cover the Broncos for the Locked on Network and 9 News, so make sure you follow and subscribe to Locked on Broncos, free and available everywhere you get your podcast. You want to watch us, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, Locked on Broncos, and thank you so much, Broncos country, for making Locked on Broncos your first listen of the day every single day. Sayre, hey man, it's great to be back with you here on another episode of Locked on Broncos, enjoying our conversations with Broncos country. A big week is in store for them, my friend, but as always, great to see you. Can't wait to break down all the action today.
Great to see you too, Cody. Like you said, as always. And man, I could get used to December 13th, still talking about the Broncos in the playoff mix, talking about having a winning record. I mean, it feels like it's been forever, doesn't it? It feels like it's been a lifetime. So much has happened in Broncos country since the last time this has happened. So it's cool to be in this position. It's cool to be talking about a game with huge implications again. And I can't wait, man. I can't wait to talk about this matchup against Cincinnati this week.
Absolutely. And here's something else, too. The Broncos are doing this in a year where the NFL is so competitive. I think, to be honest with you, sir, in the last couple of years, we've only just seen like 4 or 5 teams, in each conference. Well, not necessarily in each, but all together, featuring both conferences, where you have maybe 3 or 4 teams that are real legitimate contenders. This year, it is so wide open. Now, obviously, there's teams that look really good. They're at the top right now. But, we've seen such a wild inconsistency in terms of how these teams play week in and week out. It is wide open. There are 26 teams, as of the time of recording this podcast, 26 teams in the NFL as of today that are in a playoff position or are one game away from being in a playoff position, for whether that be wild card or division. This is truly a year where the NFL is tougher all around, but man, it doesn't get any easier for this Broncos football team this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to break down why that's the case a little bit later on here in the show, but I wanted to talk about something that we didn't get a chance to address in the post-game show. Obviously we didn't want to cloud Demaryius Thomas being honored by the Broncos play, and the Broncos win on Sunday with this, but it's something we need to address here today, and that's Teddy Bridgewater. And look, the Broncos, their issues on the offensive side of the ball, they start and they end with Teddy Bridgewater. There's been a lot of people that have been putting blame on the offensive line, but Sayre, I can tell you this, going back and watching the All-22, the offensive line has been really good for this team, and they've given Teddy Bridgewater time to throw. The issue has been Teddy's decision, his ball placement, more importantly, throwing too low or behind wide receivers, and that was on full display here on Sunday against the Detroit Lions. And you can obviously tell Jerry Jeudy is one of those frustrated guys. Javonte Williams receiving touchdown. He literally had to adjust backwards to it and almost come forward because it was thrown behind him and low. This is an issue, and it also sets up guys to take unnecessary shots. So that's kind of where my frustration is. But look, what are your thoughts on the Broncos, quarterback position? Because like I said, I really do believe, Sayre, the issues do start and end with Teddy Bridgewater primarily.
I think you're right, Cody, and that's a spot-on analysis of what we saw yesterday in the game. And I think it was even worse, like compounded in a way, by the fact that our good buddy Benjamin Albright with 850 KOA, he reported that Teddy Bridgewater is looking to get paid $25 million a year this offseason, which, I mean, my goodness, when I read that, and everyone I'm sure in Broncos country that saw that tweet from Ryan Edwards, our other good friend over there with Benjamin, I mean, when he tweeted that out, man, I couldn't believe it. I was kind of in a state of shock, and that kind of makes every single thing that he does seem way worse, doesn't it? It's like, the lackadaisical type of attitude. We talked about that before the show started. It seems like his attitude is just not quite in it. And it was nice to see a little fire from him in that drive leading up to halftime, where he's up there campaigning for the offsides penalty and those types. It's cool to see passion from the quarterback position. What's unfortunate is that it's noteworthy. It's something that we're pointing out as like, hey, that's actually a positive. It's good to see that kind of stuff. But the other things that you talked about, man, that's just so it's so frustrating over the course of a game. As I'm sure Jerry Jeudy is super frustrated. I'm sure the other guys are frustrated too, the other
Yeah.
receivers in the group. So it's tough to see where Teddy Bridgewater is exactly coming from. Like, do you really want to be the guy that gets paid $1 million per touchdown? Or I mean, I don't know what his ultimate goal is. I mean, he for $25 million, I expect a lot more out of a starting QB. And if that's who he thinks he is as a player, we need to see a lot more from him, in my opinion.
And Teddy knows he's not going to get that type of money from the Denver Broncos. And so there's been some talk, some rumblings inside that locker room that Teddy already knows he's on his way out after this season. So I think that players are taking note of that. I think it's, obvious for me to be able to see. And for me, I don't know if it maybe clouds my judgment even more on Teddy, knowing what I've been told on certain things like that. But it's like, okay, hey, look, you have a chance, Teddy, to lead this team to the playoffs, to help be a key component of that, because obviously the quarterback position, they're the driver of the vehicle, and how they play affects the rest of the team. I mean, it affects the defense. If the offense is going 3-and-out very quickly, the defense, let's say they're on a 10-play drive, they force a missed field goal, or they force a punt after being on the field for, let's say, 3 or 4 minutes, and then within under a minute or less, they're back out on the field because the offense can't get it going. That is an issue, and I think a lot of that has been on not only just Pat Shurmur, but also primarily on Teddy Bridgewater. And there was a graphic on the game on Sunday against the Lions where it pulled up that Teddy through the first 4 games. Teddy in those first couple of games was fantastic for the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing things that had us questioning the narrative of him, like, okay, we're not seeing this check down guy. And then all of a sudden, as you get deeper into the season, you start to see him kind of be who everyone said that he was. And look, we were blown away by what he did in the first 3 weeks, but then again, it didn't matter at the end of the day when he started to regress a little bit. And I think that's definitely been the biggest issue. So body language, the rest of the way, is key. He's just not going to get that from the Denver Broncos. Not going to get that payday, and rightfully so. The Broncos should not pay him that type of money because he has been a very, very eyesore part of the offense. And I wanted to say it on the postgame show. For me, I love football, Sayre. I love it so much. I love watching the game, and I'm watching mediocre offenses have quarterbacks that aren't necessarily good air it out. And look, well, Davis Mills starting off 14 for 14 against the Seahawks on Sunday. I mean, I'm looking at some of these other quarterbacks. I'm like, why can't the Broncos quarterback do this? Teddy Bridgewater makes me frustrated to watch football sometimes. And I hate saying that because it's like, look, Teddy's a great human being. Do not get me wrong. Don't make this seem like I'm hating on Teddy. I'm just frustrated with Teddy's ability as a quarterback from the position and what a team needs from a quarterback to get the job done. That's simply it. And I think that Broncos country, for the most part, Sarah, there's going to be some people here on YouTube in the comment section or on Twitter that disagree with you and I on this. But the reality is it's been very porous. It's been very lackluster with Teddy Bridgewater running the Broncos offense. And so Broncos country, let us know your thoughts here in the comment section down below on YouTube. But coming up here in just a moment, we're going to talk a little bit more about Pat Shurmur. He did something on Sunday that I think maybe has Broncos fans questioning, can he do it the rest of the season? What is that? What position does it entail? We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But before we do that, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's episode, Locked On Broncos. That's our good friends over there at Boost Mobile. And you listen to podcasts for the power of knowledge. You switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money. Because with Boost, you get the power of a free 5G phone so you can listen to all the latest episodes of the Locked On Broncos podcast. The power of 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line so your family can harness all that brain power too. And the power of one of America's largest 5G networks so you can do it at the speed of 5G. And with all that money that you'll save and all that knowledge that you'll gain, just how powerful will you become with Boost Mobile today? Switch to Boost Mobile and find out and get a free Samsung Galaxy A32 5G when you switch to one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save. Boost Mobile, free phone limited to new customers and 1 per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers coverage not available everywhere or for all phones or networks. See boostmobile.com for details. And our good friends over there at On Location. And ladies and gentlemen, Super Bowl 56 is under 100 days away, and it's going to be in beautiful Los Angeles during a time of the year where the weather is warm and it is great. And On Location, the official hospitality partner of the National Football League, is the only place to score a once-in-a-lifetime Super Bowl ticket and experience package today. Select your exact seats, and you get to choose from elite experiences featuring an exclusive pregame celebration with NFL legends, 5-star LA hotels, and food by the great Wolfgang Puck. You can visit onlocationexp.com/SB56 for more information or search Super Bowl On Location. That's onlocationexp.com/SB56 or search Super Bowl On Location today. Are you excited for the Super Bowl like we are? We'll get there today with On Location. All right, Sarah, as we continue on today's episode, Locked On Broncos, we had teased a little bit about something Pat Shurmur did on Sunday against the Detroit Lions that we're like, hey, is he finally coming around to it? Is he going to do more of it? and that's his utilization of the Broncos tight ends. We got to see a lot more from Noah Fant. We got to see a lot more from Albert Okwuegbunam in his game against the Lions. Sayre, what is it exactly the Broncos did, and why must Pat Shurmur follow that formula the rest of the season?
Well, Cody, I just got to say, first off, Noah Fant was so happy about it that he hugged a cheerleader after one of his big plays. But in all seriousness, it was great to see 9 targets for the tight ends in this game. And more so than just 9 targets, Cody, it was 9 targets we saw these guys being utilized properly. We were begging for this a week ago. So this is kind of a follow-up to something that we talked about on a previous show. But man, getting these guys opportunities to get yardage after the catch, giving them chances to make plays downfield. That's what we saw in this game from Pat Shurmur and the Denver Broncos as an offensive unit. And to kind of build off of your frustration with Teddy Bridgewater too, Cody, I was a little frustrated seeing that even that red zone target for Albert Okwuegbunam in this game, which, by the way, a red zone target for Albert O. Let's all rejoice over that for a second. But that red zone target for Albert O came after Noah Fant was wide open on the backside of that play, and Albert O had already run all the way through his route. So I wasn't sure what Teddy Bridgewater was doing. He had two options right away. So it all worked out in the end. Albert O made a great play after the catch. Go figure, because, that's what he does. That's what he does well. Matter of fact, I was looking at some next-gen stats today. Cody, it's crazy. Albert O has one of the top 20 most unlikely plays after the catch this season. That big play that he had early on in the year. That's that's evidence, if anything, right? We got to get these guys the ball in space more. But it was really cool to see 9 targets, 9 receptions. No drops among those. So they caught all 9 targets for 92 yards. And obviously that little cherry on top touchdown of one of the coolest drives that we're going to see all year, the 88-yard touchdown drive to finish off the Lions.
Oh, and you talked about that one route where Noah Fant caught a pass, ran into a cheerleader, hugged her to make sure she was okay. She actually ran up to him to see if he was okay. But seeing Noah Fant sent vertically as the number 2 receiver up the field where he draws that safety, his size and just the ball placement, Teddy had a good throw there. I will give him credit on that. His ball placement on that particular play was fantastic. But it's I agree with you. In that red zone on Albert O's touchdown, you mentioned the earlier play that happened against the New York Giants where he had caught it and he had to run and try to jump into the end zone, make an athletic play. Albert O was pretty much right next to the sideline by the time he caught that pass. And for him to have to turn upfield at his size and still try to extend to get it, that says a lot. But you were spot on too. Noah Fant wide open on that crossing pattern. This is the second time I think Teddy Bridgewater has missed out Noah Fant in the red zone. Last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, he missed what would have been a wide open touchdown to Noah Fant in the red zone. Unfortunately, ended up in the Broncos not coming with any points. That to me, I think, is super frustrating. But it's great to see Noah Fant utilized in the way that he should. And ladies and gentlemen, there were some Broncos fans who were like, the Broncos should trade Noah Fant. They don't need Noah Fant. I will beg to differ. The Broncos need Noah Fant because with the right quarterback, with the right offensive system, he's going to have success. And he's going to be one of those players. If you were to trade him away, you know what? He would go have success elsewhere. And then everybody would be saying, why did they do that? I'm telling you, Noah Fant, a lot of people want to bag on him. And we've talked about that here on the show. I think it's all very unwarranted. He has to get better as a blocker. Nobody's ever arguing that. Absolutely. But he was not brought in to be a blocking tight end. He was brought in to be a playmaking, wide receiving tight end that can do a lot of great things. The Broncos have some good blockers there. And Eric Saubert. Eric Saubert, I expect to be back next season for the Broncos as well. George Payton's talked about him. Vic Fangio's talked about him. So I like that. I'm glad that you mentioned that too. But the red zone, Sayre, this is where the bread and butter's got to be. When you have a strong run game, guess what you can do? You can go 13 personnel. You can go 12 personnel. You can have a 2 tight end set. And teams are going to think that you're going to run the football, which, at times you should. But then you can also pass it with these 2 guys at the tight end position. Sayre, the Broncos can be super useful if they can improve in this area. And a lot of it's going to start with Teddy Bridgewater, and a lot of it's going to start with Pat Shurmur recognizing that they need to do a lot more of what we saw on Sunday. So I'm excited about that. Now, in your opinion, what are your thoughts on the Broncos' 3 tight ends right now in that room? And obviously Andrew Beck, he's that flex fullback guy, but we never really see him playing split as the tight end that's in line. We always see him playing as that sniffer guy. Your thoughts on the Broncos' tight end position as a whole and how they could be utilized the rest of the way?
I love this position group, honestly. I came into the offseason kind of thinking, well, George Payton might need to do some tinkering there and maybe add a guy through the draft or free agency. Even talking about hey, maybe you take a swing at trading for Zach Ertz and really just solidify that group, make it an elite group. But man, I love what those guys have been able to do this season with kind of I hate to say they're making lemonade out of lemons, but that's kind of what it is. I mean, they're making plays when they're being given the opportunities to do so, and even when they're not, they're catching those dinky little 2-yard passes that are thrown behind them, and they're by the sideline. They're literally standing at the sideline waiting for the ball. So I think they're doing a good job with what's being given to them. Like you said, Eric Saubert, I would love to see him back
Yeah.
next season. He's done a great job as a blocker, plays special teams. The coaches like him a lot. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think you're spot on, Cody, about trading Noah Fant and not trading Noah Fant. If he would go somewhere else, Broncos fans would be regretting that for a long time. You just don't get a lot of players at his position with that kind of combination of size, speed, pass catching ability, and just that after the catch potential. It's not necessarily all about potential at this point. We know Noah Fant, this is his third NFL season, but man, you've still got next season. You've got the 5th-year option left on his contract after that. And then beyond that, you could franchise tag him. I mean, franchise tagging tight ends is not that expensive in today's NFL. So I'm not thinking at all in terms of trading him or getting rid of him by any means. I'm thinking, what quarterback can we bring in that's gonna raise Noah Fant to the level of a guy like we saw Julius Thomas. Julius Thomas, not the most renowned blocking tight end, not the best in terms of bodying guys out there, and so there's a spot for finesse players. And I'm not saying Noah Fant is strictly finesse either. I mean, he did some good work blocking for the running game too. But man,
Yeah.
I think you've got a good group of players at that spot.
You do. No need to make changes there. And it's so hard in this common era of what we see in football at the collegiate level. It's rare outside of like teams like Georgia Tech, Navy, a lot of teams that love to run the football. You see a lot of guys that are, flexed out, no longer in line. So it's like Noah Fant's being used as an inline tight end, which it's not a strength. He should be used flexed a little bit more, or at least have some balance with it. So I do agree with that. But hey, Broncos country, coming up here in just a moment, Sayre and I are going to get into a conversation about how the Broncos are probably this upcoming week going to face the biggest test of the season. What's going to be so challenging, and how might the Broncos find some flex to help aid with the problem that they're going to run into against the Bengals on Sunday? We get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about the other sponsor. Today's episode, Locked On Broncos. That's our good friends over there at Stance. And ladies and gentlemen, Stance is some of the most comfortable, uniquely designed items that are out there today in terms of apparel. I'm talking socks, I'm talking underwear, I'm talking clothing. And lately, I've been hearing a lot about Stance on commercials. I've seen it on websites. I've also seen it on Twitter feeds as well. But that's because they've also launched a brand new line of active apparel for those who are healthy, or those that are go running or work out or go to the gym. They're now making stuff for us there. So if you're an active listener here of Locked On Broncos, you like to stay healthy, you go on walks, you go on runs, you stay physically fit, they also have this brand new active apparel that we just mentioned. Check it out today with Stance. Plus, it's holiday gifting time, and that means that you need to find a way to get people that you love in your life socks, shirts, and also some brand new underwear. Why not go with the best and most comfortable product out there with Stance today, ladies and gentlemen? Founded in 2009, Stance Apparel represents a radical invention of socks, underwear, and active apparel with a sharp focus on comfort, quality, and creativity. Stance brings in an atypical aesthetic alongside some of pop culture's hottest collaborators for the ultimate in style and self-expression, because everything you wear should be a direct extension of who you are and how you feel. And they also have collaborations with the Wu-Tang Clan, Batman, the Goonies, Star Wars, The Office, Harry Potter, Disney, Marvel, Bob Marley, Major League Baseball, NBA, and Pixar. The items that they have are really comfortable. I have a couple of pairs of Stance socks, and they are the most comfortable socks that I own today. Silky smooth on the feet, which is so necessary during the cold winter time here in Colorado. So make sure you get yourself some Stance socks today. Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in, and those that feel good, they do good. So go see for yourself. Register for an account at stance.com and get 15% off your first purchase. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to apply. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. All right, Sayre, as we jump into the fourth quarter action on today's episode of Locked On Broncos, just a reminder, Broncos country, thank you so much for making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day, your support, you tuning in every day to listen to Sayre and I talk Broncos football, to provide our thoughts and our analysis on it. We also want to include you in the show, so thank you so much for everything. Tomorrow's episode of the show, we're going to bring on a mailbag episode, so send in your questions on Twitter at Cody Roark NFL, at Locked On Broncos, at Sayre Bedinger. The tweet is up. Go reply to it, and we'll try to get to it on tomorrow's episode of the show. But we got to talk about something here, Sayre. This is a big week here for this Broncos football team. We're mentioning they're just a couple of spots away from a wild card spot, essentially one game away from being in the wild card conversation with the Chargers are sitting up there right now at the top. And obviously they got to take care of business against some other guys, some teams that beat the Broncos earlier on the season. They're up there ahead of them. So you have to hope that this week and on Thursday that the Chiefs beat the Chargers. Broncos fans, you have to root for the Chiefs this week just because they have to lose. I mean, the Chargers have to lose to them in order for the Broncos to move up to a spot. That's going to be so crucial. So fingers crossed on that one. Kansas City, this is the only time we're ever going to root for you here. So go for it there. But outside of that, the Broncos are getting ready to face their biggest test, in my opinion, Sarah, so far of the season. That's the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, they're coming off of an overtime loss to the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday. But when I look at this offense led by Joe Burrow and a pretty good defense, I mean, can't even begin to stress that there. I want to focus on the offense here because the Broncos had some issues stopping the run on Sunday against the Detroit Lions, and they're going to be facing a dynamic duo with Samaje Perine as the backup and Joe Mixon as the starting tailback here for this Bengals team. But they're led by Joe Burrow, who is playing fantastic football this season. I think he's making a lot out of some of the opportunities that he's had. But then you also look at that wide receiving core, Tyler Boyd, you have T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Man, this is a tough test for the Broncos this week. And it's going to be good because one guy may be back this week, and that's Bryce Callahan, who was activated off of the IR list this past week and did not play a single snap against the Detroit Lions, even though that he was dressed, he was active. Man, they're going to need him this week.
They definitely are. And that's going to be fun to watch those guys all play against each other. You know, Pat Surtain, Bryce Callahan, then obviously Ronald Darby, Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, the whole secondary ready to go, hopefully, for this game. We don't know what happened with Kareem Jackson, if he's going to have any lingering effects from he came back into the game, but you just never know the day after how guys' body's going to respond. But yeah, that matchup there in the passing game is a lot of fun. And you almost want to kind of hope that Vic Fangio's recent run of success against young quarterbacks is going to hold true in this game. What really, is something that we're going to talk about, and we've been getting some of those mailbag questions in. I saw Mr. Boggins asked about, the Joe Mixon, stopping Joe Mixon. So, I mean, it's definitely the most, I hate to even say this, Cody, because I know people are going to probably bring up other teams, but just thinking about the teams that the Broncos have played, I would say this is the most skill position talent they faced all year. And that includes the teams like the Chiefs and the Chargers, who have some really, really good playmakers. So I feel like this is the most talented unit. The Bengals are also healthy. So you got to really figure out ways to attack their weaknesses. I mean, the offensive line is kind of notorious in Cincinnati right now. They haven't necessarily done a ton in terms of draft capital and free agency, things like that, to improve it. But obviously they're doing well this season. They're right in the thick of things, just like the Denver Broncos are. And that's 1 year removed from picking number one in the draft. So we got a lot to focus on for the Broncos defense this week in terms of matchups, in terms of guys being on their assignment. Maybe Bryce Callahan was just activated against the Lions as an emergency, knowing that he would need to play in this game for sure against that talented receiver group of Cincinnati.
Ooh, it's going to be an interesting one here. We talk about the Broncos' struggles at inside linebacker, stopping the run. That, obviously that position is a big key cog in terms of that. Kenny Young going through concussion protocol this week. This guy might be your flex seal guy that you were referring to in the post-game podcast. Who the Broncos maybe need to look at bringing up to the active roster at inside backer?
I mean, I feel like Avery Williamson is approaching Cam Fleming status in terms of the amount of times they talked about him without him really doing anything. But man, right? Flex seal time. Avery Williamson, come up off the practice squad. Hey, he's got plenty of experience against these Bengals. He played for the Steelers last season, right? So he knows these Bengals. He knows Zach Taylor's offensive scheme. He's going to be able to help in that regard. I know, obviously, you're trying to get him up to speed in the Vic Fangio defense, but you signed him to the practice squad for a reason, for this very reason, in case you had another injury at the position. And I'm as much here for Jonas Griffith being the next big thing as anyone, but I think you need to have contingencies in place. You need to have somebody who's started games in the NFL before. This is a playoff game, basically, Cody, right? I mean, the Broncos can't lose to the Bengals this week and expect tiebreakers to help them out in the end. They have to take care of business and win this game and have that tiebreaker themselves. And a guy like Avery Williamson could be that flex seal type of, hey, we're going to fix this leak that we've got in the run defense right now. And we're going to do it with a guy who's historically been very good against the run.
I'm excited for it. Obviously, a lot of storylines this week. We'll also have a crossover episode with the Locked On Bengals guys a little bit later on this week to preview the matchup in full, but obviously some storylines throughout the week. Sayre and myself will have you covered all week long here. Locked On Broncos, free and available everywhere you get your podcast, also on YouTube. If you want to watch us on your TV, your smartphone, or your computer, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on all the action. Plus, if you're watching this video, please do us a favor, hit that like button here on YouTube. It helps out with the algorithm, helps us continue to grow. And then tomorrow's episode of Locked On Broncos, Sayre and I, we're going to answer your mailbag questions exclusively here on Locked On Broncos. Also, check out the tweet where you can put your question in on Twitter at Cody Roark NFL. It's tagged Sayre and at Locked On Broncos as well. It is in there. Go send your response. We'll get it into the queue and we'll answer on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Broncos. But once again, Broncos country, thank you so much for making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day. We appreciate your interaction, your Broncos thoughts, your Broncos feedback. It means the world to Sayre and I that you take time out of your day to listen, to tune in to us talk Broncos football all year long. Because guess what? There is no offseason for the true fan. We got you covered here every single day. Locked On Broncos.